Hello again, everyone. That's My Pizza with another Langrisser Mobile Apex Arena video. So yeah, I didn't since I hit Langrisser rank. I've actually been trying to just relax a little bit till playoffs start because I'm pretty much already guaranteed to actually be in playoffs. And two, I don't want to. I feel like I'm just kind of getting a little bit more I'm just practicing at this point for playoffs, so I don't want to spend too much time trying to like get even further up because there's really no point because I'm already at the top. In any case, let me just start off this review. So essentially, the first game I played last weekend was against Muchazak, and spoiler, it kind of goes very poorly for me. Yeah, Muchazak's box is a bit harder for me to deal with, and I didn't notice Clarinet was a sword. Any case, if I play against him, I'll probably change my pick ban a little bit. Like, I think I probably should have just banned out his Iris first, and then he would have been forced to pick between Imelda or TRS first, and that would have given me a little bit more flexibility on who I'd really want to get rid of. Like at that point, I probably could have just banned out his Taguro Bros and his Hiei and just forced them to pick a kind of not great pick. Well, a not great secondary pick, but that's just something I should think of for later. In any case, yeah, kind of standard picks and bans. He gave me Juggler because his box is single target, and Juggler doesn't do as well against single target focused boxes. So, pretty standard stuff. I picked Zerda because I wanted to get a faction buffer for Juggler. So, yeah, because I went for a faction buffer in this case because my box really isn't really gonna work well if my juggler gets killed in turn 1. So yeah, stuff happens and it's not all good. But also, that happens as well. His juggler gets a breeze proc, and basically I'm pretty much fucked at this point because this juggler has 8 movement, so he can basically threaten me in my spawn point, so yeah. Like, I just kind of get really, really unlucky with it. Well, one, I don't really pick ban that well, and two, I just get really, really unlucky. But that's life sometimes. You just have to take your take the RNG losses when they come, and yeah, it can hurt, but just don't take it too seriously. So yeah, basically he's just positioning far up so he can, so he can get the advantage. What I probably should have done is I should have acted again my Zerda and then teleported her in with Iris, but yeah. So yeah, this is pretty much gonna finish off my Juggler because Taguro hits really hard, and I think Muchazak's Taguro is just really well built. So yeah, what ends up happening is he ends up just one-shotting my Juggler. I think just barely. But yeah, that just kind of shows off the power of Taguro. So yeah, at this point I really can't do anything because my team's really short-legged. His threat range is really too high, and I really can't do much. But yeah, let's just quickly fast forward because it's really not that interesting because basically what happens is I basically just sleep and do whatever I can to get turn advantage on Muchazak, but there's really nothing I can do. Yeah, and then Juggler teleports in. He has Spear Boot, so he's going to position right there to lock down my Zerda, and then my Zerda can't really do anything. So at the point, this match is pretty much over, so yeah, it's just kind of unfortunate. But, yeah. But what my thought around like those kinds of matches is sometimes they just happen, and you can't really do much, and that's due to Tenyos and Breeze procs and all this RNG that's in the game that makes the game a lot more interesting, but on the other hand, it can just completely mess you up. In any case, let's move on to the next match. So this match against Thailand, I don't exactly remember how it goes. He doesn't give me double tanks, and he doesn't give me juggler on Gemini Bridge, which is really really nice. So yeah, we're kind of. I'm just going with my regular strategy since he doesn't have a singular focus, a box that's focused on either AOE or single target. So it's a lot easier for me to ban out these boxes because what I can do is just ban the major threats and then kind of force them into an unfavorable position. Like, I almost always go Buzz the second pick, and I'm facing a Landius because essentially Bozel has a butt ton of debuffs, and there's only a select number of units that can really deal with all those debuffs very well. And those units would be Liana, Weiler. Well, Weiler, not so much in my opinion, because he has to actually have the. The enemy team actually has to get hit by the debuffs before he can start dispelling them, and that move actually doesn't. Well, his high stakes doesn't actually heal until after. Well, it doesn't heal until combat actually initiates, and that basically never happens against my box because I'm completely AoE focused. But he also has Forest Priest, and generally I just kind of find if I don't have a Listel, dealing with Weiler is just a pain in the butt. So in any case, I pick Zerda because a lot of his team are just squishies. Like, the only ones who could really survive an assault from my Zerda at this point would probably be Aryan Road, Listel, and Deedlit. And depending on it, well, I honestly don't think he's going to pick very well, because basically he just picks I banned out his healer, so he's kind of forced to pick a squishy. So then I get rid of the two major threats, the two major characters who my Zerda would have trouble killing. So yeah, there's that. And so, essentially, what I kind of did was a bit of a fake out. Like, he gave me Zerda and Bozel, so he thought I'd probably go Bloodthirster, but honestly, I really dislike using Bloodthirster because it's a really obvious build. Like, it's really easy to play around if you know what you're doing. So instead, I decided to go with a Zerda Meteor Pivot. So essentially, I had Zerda. I picked Zerda. Instead of having Zerda receive the buffs from Bozel, I had Zerda actually buffing up my Joshua, so my Joshua can actually run a lot more interesting stuff. And if the newest patch hit, I would be able to run his 3C, but unfortunately I can't. So I just got the standard stuff on Joshua, except instead of faction buff, I'm bringing ninjutsu because there's a decent amount of defensive terrain that Joshua can use to his advantage. So yeah, we're just positioning around, and I'm just trying to gauge where he's going to actually position all his units. So it looks like he's going up, and he's trying to avoid my Zerda, but in all honesty, that's not going to make a difference because I'm just going to teleport my Zerda and just one-shot one of his units. So yeah, I honestly am very confident. Honestly, I just need to use Zerda to take out his Zerda so I can have more flexibility with my mages. Yep, so essentially, really, he can't escape my Zerda at all. So yeah, next turn my Zerda's just going to go in and kill his Zerda. There's nothing he can really do about that. And that's kind of a combo you need to be wary of when facing against Zerda and facing against a Zerda and an Iris. So yeah, I just go in, kill off his Zerda, and I kill off Zerda first because he has to essentially use 2 units to kill off my Zerda, and my Zerda is also out of the range of his Landius, so he can't just go up and slam his Landius into my Zerda. And so yeah, I'm basically trying to gain terrain positioning advantage against him, and yeah, my Zerda's dead now. And that's all according to my calculations, because I essentially want to essentially mess up his positioning and make him react to me instead of me reacting to him. The only downside to that is my Joshua basically has no further buffers, so if it goes on, this match goes on for a little bit too long, I am in a bit of trouble. Unless I get a Lucky Tenuous proc, which I don't. Well, not there in any case. So yeah, he's trying to essentially regroup, and he uses Rewind right over there, so his Licorice could actually cast Dark Dragon's Breath again. And I'm not too sure how smart that was. But also, that positioning of his Landius right there was pretty bad, because that just allowed me to throw in Black Hole on his team. And it got some really nasty debuffs on that Licorice, like, she has Heal Block, and she's also currently silenced, so I can safely just run my Joshua in Dark Demise. And unfortunately for me, this Licorice actually had a damage taken minus 20% buff on her, and she's also, so essentially she just survives with like barely any health left. And yeah, unfortunately the damage reduction from Landius stacks with this damage reduction buff, so essentially she has 35 damage reduction against my Joshua, which is pretty unfortunate, but can't really do much about that anymore. In any case, it puts that Licorice in a bad position in that she has to move away if she doesn't want to get killed. And at this point, I actually could move my Boozle in and just finish her off with an AoE, but what I'm thinking of is just getting turn advantage. So I put his Landius to sleep. And essentially, this Landius is dead, to say the least. So I can just kill off his first life, because one, it doesn't cost me, it doesn't really harm my positioning, and there's really no cost to me. And then I'm just kind of at the point where I might as well just kill him off at this turn, because he's going to have turn advantage anyways. So yeah, his Boozle throws a giant AoE on my team, and it does a good amount of damage. And luckily, my Boozle didn't get silenced, so I can actually do some shenanigans on him now. So what I end up doing is I just move my Boozle over there and Earthquake. But if I wasn't so hesitant, I probably could have killed that Licorice off. Well, whatever. She does spares, and it does a good amount of damage, but it doesn't really... It isn't super impactful, because what's going to happen here is I'm just going to Phantom Raid. And since I have ninjutsu, Joshua gets a ton of attack. So yeah, that gives me enough, that does enough damage, so I can just throw my Landius in and finish him off. So at this point, I pretty much won, and yeah, he's just throwing down some debuffs. And what I realize right now is I could have basically won on this turn if I just moved my Joshua here and just Dark Despaired. Well, Dark Demised. But instead, I just decided to do a single target attack to kill off Sophia. Because my Boozle really wasn't going to be doing anything else at that point. So yeah, now I was like, oh, I can just do this, and then I kill off his Licorice. So yeah, there's that. And then, the next match actually is pretty unfortunate for Hakuo, and he makes a pretty big mistake before the match starts. And I'll just show it to you, but basically I'll show it to you, but this match is going to end in... Hakuo is going to surrender on turn 1 because the mistake was that bad. And yeah, it's really unfortunate that happened, because it can really mess you up if you're not paying attention. So yeah, pretty standard picks and bans. His team is also kind of a... It's kind of a mess. I think his box is kind of a mess, to be honest, because he has a lot of single target characters, and some AoE characters, but no real major focus, and his supports are just kind of all over the place. Also, just kind of interesting stuff that's happening. He picks Weiler almost immediately, which is kind of odd in my opinion, because my bans weren't too impressed. Like, I got rid of his Ares and his Zerda because I didn't want to deal with the the buffs that Zerda gave out, and I didn't want to deal with Ares because he's just kind of a pain in the butt. So yeah, essentially I pick Listel right here because all he's really got left are fixed damage characters in Listel and Joshua, and kind of big AoE debuffers with Bozol, Rainforce, and Licorice. And then D-Lit really can't threaten my Landius that well because of just type disadvantage, and same with Rainforce, so I was kind of expecting him to pick like Bozol or Licorice, but instead he goes for, I believe, Rainforce. Yeah. And Rainforce is not it's not a terrible pick, but it's just made his box very reliant on debuffs, so essentially what ends up happening is I just pick Liano, and I pick up her Sky Archer for this fight, so I can just get rid of all the debuffs that he's going to throw at me. And at this point, I actually pick, I believe, Gizerath, or is it Joshua? Yeah, I actually pick up Gizerath, and that's mostly because I want to harass him with debuffs, but in retrospect, I think probably picking Joshua would have been a better idea because he has a lot of squishy mages. But that's neither here nor there now. But the major mistake Hakuo made was he accidentally brought the wrong skills on Rainforce, so that's kind of unfortunate. Like, what I'm thinking happened is he probably was doing some PvE and then he just forgot to change Rainforce back. So yeah, in the end, he really this mistake just cut down the pressure that Rainforce could actually add to his team, and it's just really unfortunate because he kind of, when you're playing PvP, you really need all the best stuff you can get. So yeah, since he noticed that, he basically just ended up conceding at that point, which was very unfortunate. But what can you do? Well, what you can do is be completely paranoid like me and just double and triple check every single unit you have deployed. And I basically always just run the timer out on that, because if you bring the wrong skills on the characters in Apex, you're probably gonna lose. And I want to make sure that I don't lose because of a dumb mistake like that. Though if it's in World Arena, that's perfectly fine because World Arena is a shit mode. In any case, I'm actually playing against Vanarin, one of my guildmates at the moment, and I didn't actually know it was Vanarin at the moment, and so I kind of am just going with the regular bans and picks that I really like doing. So get rid of the RNG stuff from Rhea and get rid of Ares because I just don't want to deal with his repositioning stuff, and get rid of Juggler because he counters most of my box. And here, I really disagree with this pick because Listel is a very good unit, but she has a lot of counterplay to her. Like, she doesn't have the best movement, especially if she's using Bracer Emblem, which most Listels do, and I can kind of deal with that. It's with Ren or just kind of some of my other long-range AoE debuffers, like Bozol. I really should get Mistanister's on my Joshua. But yeah, it's just, there's a lot of counterplay that I can actually do to Listel. So essentially what I end up doing is I start getting rid of his debuff removals, and I actually leave Liana here because Liana as P1 actually isn't the best, but yeah. So essentially what I end up doing is I pick my own Listel because she has a bracer on, so that Listel won't be able to do much to me. And so he starts banning out some of more of my AoE units, and I'm like, that frees me up to pick Bozol. And yeah, that will kind of be Bozol will be a thorn inside this match, and I kind of feel like he made a mistake on letting me have him. Also, I also have to question this Zerda pick as well. Like, Zerda, what I've shown in some of my previous videos is Zerda basically cannot kill Listel, so that's basically one unit she can't deal with. and she really can't deal with Landius because of his aura and his just general tankiness. So she's only really here to check my Bozal, which I honestly am question. That's a questionable check, especially because if I could bring like Skeletal Knights, and I could potentially tank a Meteor Zerda with like backstabbing and stuff, and then Zerda pretty much eats healers, which is pretty obvious. So yeah. So essentially, she bans out my Zerda and my Gizaroth because Zerda can be buffed by Bozal, and then Bozal can receive a buff from Gizaroth. So essentially, he gives me Ren, which is a very questionable choice because my Ren will get buffed by my Landius, and she can add on a lot of range pressure. So yeah, I'm just kind of standing back to just get a sense of what he's planning to do. And essentially, he's just getting set up with his entire team. Like, Yusuke really can't start initiating until like turn 3 if he doesn't have a faction buffer on his team. And as you kind of notice, he got a lucky tenuous proc. Luckily, it was not on any of his DPS units. So I'm a little safe, but I'm still just playing a little cautiously because I want to see where he's trying to go. And then he throws Gospel on his Landius because he doesn't want him to get slept by my Bozal. And then he gets a lucky Gospel on his Zerda, which is completely very annoying. So yeah, this kind of toxic mixture that his Leanna can basically run anywhere, and again his Zerda can basically hit any of my units So at this point, I'm basically like, I'm in a lot of deep shit, so I need to start being aggressive. So what I end up doing is I teleport my Bozal in, and honestly, I don't think that was the best move because what would essentially happen is either he just runs up and uses Peace of Mind on his Zerda, or he does what he did here and inflict a ton of damage on my Bozal, which not a bad move, but essentially that just gives me the opportunity to just throw a big old black hole on him. And that also puts his Listel in a very bad spot in that I can start just throwing a bunch of debuffs on her. Like, she just gets some nasty stuff, like a lot of damage taken debuffs, actually, so actually that's kind of fine. It's not a big deal. So yeah, he agains his Zerda, and at this point I'm like, I better just throw all my AoEs at him, because it really won't make a difference. I'll get turn advantage either way, and either of my mages, basically, these three will pretty much die to the Zerda at this point, so I'm like, I better just start using them so I can get the maximum out of them. Well, maximum usage out of them. So I just toss in a black hole, and some very nasty stuff happens. Well, not really, actually. He just gets a bunch more debuffs on his Leanna, and he gets a bunch of debuffs on his Leanna Stella as well, so it's honestly not too bad, and I'm still in a very hard spot because the Zerda is just going to go in and kill something. Also, just kind of note my Listel's build in that I bring Skeleton Knights on her in case the Zerda had Twilight Star. And if she did, she wouldn't be able to kill my Listel because she is using Skeletal Knights. Well, in any case, the Zerda pretty much is kind of forced to run over here and kill off my Iris, because if she went to any square in 2 range of Landius, she would have just been locked in there and really couldn't do much. But she really can't do much there either, so I just gotta ignore her. And now I throw Patermater onto his team because I want to inflict even more pain with the pain and debuffs. And finally, I get a lucky break in that one, his Leanna gets silenced. 2, I get a tenuous proc on my Listel, and never mind about this Listel, she's just debuffed heck and back. So yeah, lots and lots of nasty debuffs. And there, I pretty much just move my Bozal out of danger so he can recover some health. And here, this Zerda, that's it. Honestly, the Gyarados kind of in a bad spot, so she really couldn't do much. But I pretty much just go up and get rid of her. And even what I could have also done is run my Listel up and just Reaper's Touched that Yusuke, but that would have just ended up with a dead Listel, so I'm like, nah, I didn't want to do it. And so I'm pretty much at the point where I'm like, this Buzzle's gonna die no matter what I'm gonna do, so I'm just gonna make the maximum use out of him, get the maximum use out of him before he dies, and I sleep his Listel. So here I kind of just mess with his turn order in that I force him to basically use all three of his other characters before he can do anything else. So yeah, I just start burning his turns now, and essentially what I was thinking is I could get what I was thinking is I could get turn advantage if I left that Listel alive, but honestly that would have been too much of a pain, because the following turn I would have had to deal with another Blood Dance, which is just not ideal. So essentially what I did is I just got rid of her and applied more debuffs to this Landius. And here Vananorin actually makes a massive mistake, because he's actually in range of my Listel now. So what I do is I just go up and Reaper's Touch him. So his Yusuke is in a very tough situation, so yeah. So he tries to kill off my Listel right there, but unfortunately his Landius just did not have the damage, and my Listel was actually too tanky. So in the end, it gives me the opportunity to just Calamity Throw him and kill off his Liana before she can do anything, and just have his Yusuke do a ton of damage to himself with Reaper's Touch and Listel's passive. So yeah, finally Yusuke tries to finish off my Ren, and unfortunately, since he's so damaged and has so much debuffs, he can't do enough damage to my Ren, and my Ren just finishes him off. So yeah, at that point, Vanaren basically had no chance in coming back. So yeah, just kind of an interesting match where RNG was completely bullshit. And you gotta hate it sometimes, but you also gotta love it sometimes. And well, we're playing a gacha game, and dealing with RNG when it goes in your favor is always a boon. Like, that's why I always play the AoE. That's why my box is pretty much all AoE debuff bullshit. Because I just love when I get that the dice roll in my favor, and it's completely unfair. But on other times, sometimes that doesn't happen, and I get completely screwed over. In any case, that was all the matches I did last weekend, and I'm kind of debating on how much I should do this week as well. Like, I probably will be doing a little bit more. I'll try to do a bit more this weekend, since I really want to try out Old Landius since he drops this Thursday, and I just want to see how he fits in my box and how my playstyle evolves with him in my box. But we'll see. I'm actually fairly busy as well, so I probably won't. I may or may not get in a lot of matches, but we'll see. In any case, thanks for watching, everyone, and have a good evening, and hopefully your gacha rolls on Old Landius's banner goes very well. I'm actually pretty well prepared for it. It's like, I have like about 500 roll summons saved up, so I think I'll be okay. But we'll see. In any case, thanks for watching, everyone. Have a great evening. Bye.